Dzień dobry. Hello. We have a great guest today on camera meeting. Mrs. Christiane Kubrick. Wife of Stanley Kubrick, of course, and Jan Harlan, producer and friend of Stanley Kubrick. And I'm just Rafał Stanowski, and I have this interview, and now a short film about our guests.
Stanley Kubrick. Stanley Kubrick to jeden z czołowych reżyserów amerykańskich i twórca niezapomnianych dzieł, które w światowej klasyce mają stałe miejsce. Do takich należą m.in. czarna komedia Dr. Strangelove, obsypana nagrodami 2001 Odyseja kosmiczna oraz kontrowersyjna Mechaniczna pomarańcza. Dlatego w 15. rocznicę śmierci reżysera na krakowskich dachach wyświetlimy Lśnienie, Full Metal Jacket oraz Oczy szeroko zamknięte, a projekcję uświetni towarzystwo naszych wyjątkowych gości. Christiane Kubrick, wdowy po artyście, oraz Jana Harlana, wieloletniego producenta jego filmów. Poza tym tegorocznej edycji festiwalu towarzyszy wyjątkowa wystawa w Muzeum Narodowym. Na miłośników Stanleya Kubricka czeka tam 1000 eksponatów, a wśród nich m.in. kostiumy, rekwizyty, oryginały scenariuszy i szkiców produkcyjnych.
I think they mainly said what I said, and also that Stanley Kubrick was a great, great director, as you know. So, because it's our first meeting and your first such a big meeting with the public here, so I want to ask you about your first meeting with Stanley Kubrick. Do you remember it? Yeah, if you could take it.
So let's see how it works. Does it work?
Does it
Yeah.
work? Yes, it does.
Yes, it does.
Do I remember my first meeting?
Yes.
Definitely.
Could you tell us more, or because it was before Path of Glory film, yes?
He hired me. Yes. And so I met him. And I thought I would like him.
That's it? But I think you fell in love with each other during this film, so...
No, first meeting.
First meeting, okay.
That's right.
And
There's not much to tell, that was it.
that was it.
Yeah.
And Jan Harlan?
I met him properly when I lived in New York, and Christiane and Stanley and the family came back. Before that, I may have met him. I don't really remember. I mean, I was still at school, more or less, yeah. But then I lived in New York, and I met him regularly, and I got to know him slowly, yes. But then I went my own ways, went back to Zurich, in fact, and to Frankfurt, and it was years later that he asked me to join him for Napoleon, and well, I couldn't say what was going to happen, but I stayed with him while Napoleon was not made. So,
I've asked you about this subject because I want to know if there was something extraordinary during the meeting with Stanley Kubrick. Did you feel something extraordinary seeing him for the first time?
Yes, I thought he was for me.
well, I can't say that. I mean, I didn't feel anything extraordinary. Yeah, that took a long time to develop this relationship. He was a big filmmaker, and I was a much younger man, and I had my own life, and I lived in New York, and there was no such thing as a magical second, not at all. But it was very different for Christiane, obviously.
Yeah. So you spent so many time with this genius, so I think there's nothing extraordinary for you now. I want to ask you about the exhibition in Krakow that just has opened 2 hours ago or 3 hours ago. You know very much this exhibition, of course, but I want to ask you, because this exhibition in Krakow, as it said, it has something special. Those three paths that you can follow, the path of war, technology, and madness. I think it's something new. Do you like it?
I like it very much. I think they did a wonderful job. They put it together very, very well. And it's now the 11th city. And every time it is slightly different and has a different emphasis. Yeah, so.
I like it very much. It's beautiful. I have not seen it as well as everybody else because I was doing this. But as far as I have seen, it's absolutely beautiful and very logical and very clear and beautiful rooms. All of that, very good.
And you think those three paths of madness, technology, and war, these are three main subjects of Stanley Kubrick's films?
I think all of life was his subject, really, if you think about it. He had many different topics, not just those three. But because I didn't see the exhibition properly yet, I couldn't tell about these three things so far. But I will, I'm going.
I mean, there is a thin red line that goes to all of Kubrick's films. Like you can detect his style and handwriting similarly to how you recognize a painter. You recognize Gauguin or Van Gogh or Renoir. So you recognize Woody Allen and Ingmar Bergman. And so you recognize Stanley Kubrick. Now, every time it's a bit different. In Stanley's case, it's a bit more difficult. But if you really watch it carefully, you will see that from The Killing onwards to Eyes Wide Shut, it is a critical look at humanity, at our vanity and our folly, at our weakness, and also at our ingenuity.
I want to ask you about your favorite Stanley Kubrick's film, which it is.
You're asking me?
Yes.
It's going to be a very boring answer because I really think the topics are so different that I don't have a favorite film. It's like asking me, you know, which is your favorite child. I really like more.
I think very subjectively Eyes Wide Shut, simply because it's the last film we worked together, and I saw him with this enormous energy and making also his most difficult film. And he considered it a great achievement. So I'm no longer objective on this matter. So yeah, Eyes Wide Shut, since you want a clear answer.
So I'm asking you, because today someone asked me, which is your favorite? And I couldn't tell just one title, so I told three ones, of course: Clockwork Orange, Space Odyssey, and Shining. Those three films. I don't know if you know it, but probably you know. I want to ask you also about the favorite film of Stanley Kubrick, which of his films he liked most?
You mean Stanley liked
most?
Stanley,
yes.
Oh, it's the last one he made. Otherwise he wouldn't have made it, yeah.
Oh, that's curious. And we've said, and you've said also much about philosophy.
I didn't understand that.
You've said about philosophy. Philosophy, yeah, these were philosophical films. I want to know about belief of Stanley Kubrick. Did he believe in human or no? Or he was rather pessimistic?
Well, I would say he was fairly optimistic in daily life, and always was hoping that he could film, for example, Eyes Wide Shut in 18 weeks. Yeah. So it was an optimistic approach, but he was very pessimistic about the future of mankind. He was rather certain that we are digging our own grave the way we behave. But I don't think it's too difficult to come to that conclusion.
Yes. And there was something strange because Space Odyssey got an award in Vatican, and it was shown, I don't know, probably 2 times in Vatican. And it's strange for me because I think this film is rather agnostic than religious. Was Stanley Kubrick a religious person?
No, he was not religious, not formally religious, which doesn't mean he didn't give some thought of why are we here, like anybody else. It's on our big thought. We have very small brains, and we suffer thinking we wish they were bigger, and they're just big enough to tell us that we know nothing. That's bad fate.
I tell you a funny story. A journalist was at his house, and the journalist told him that he didn't believe in God. And Stanley said, "Look, it's fine with me, just don't say it so loud in case he can hear you."
And how he treated religion?
He treated religion not at all, really. No, he did not.
Okay. And I think Stanley Kubrick's films are about solitude. I don't know if you agree.
About what?
Solitude.
Solitude.
Yes.
I think his films were about everything, life, and different circumstances and different stories. And it would be very hard and, in fact, impoverishing to limit them to one concept. I don't do that.
And Jan?
No, I totally agree with Christiane. You can't put it down to something that's simple.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, 2001 is clearly a philosophical film. It has nothing to do with science fiction. It's a clear statement. There is much, much more than we can see, but we don't know what it is. And that is the definition of an agnostic. I don't know. That's what it means. It doesn't mean there is nothing. I just don't know. Now, in other films, like Eyes Wide Shut, he was fully aware that jealousy and sexual fantasy are a poison that is in human life. And it's a very, very difficult element to bring onto the screen. He had a wonderful story by Arthur Schnitzler, who was a man called by Sigmund Freud his alter ego. So he had good material, but it didn't mean it was easy to put it onto screen. And he struggled with it for 30 years. And because we got the rights already in 1970. You know, there was one moment, it was before The Shining, when he thought he would do it with Woody Allen in the lead as a Jewish doctor in New York, black and white, art house movie, very simple, very cheap. But then he was still not happy with his script and he postponed it again. So that's why I'm personally very glad that he finally did it, because I know that he always wanted to do it. That's it.
And I think the great secret is, why are we born with a conscience? Is it just a survival mechanism, or is it more? We don't know. So you can easily always say, I'm an agnostic, I don't know. If you say you're an atheist, you claim to know something.
Yeah. He said some amazing words. Never try to explain something that you don't understand yourself. So it's very honest.
In this case, it was also applied to a ghost story, and he was making fun of the fact that people look for serious explanation of a ghost story, which is pure entertainment. We like to scare each other, so ghost stories are good. And
he liked to scare you?
Well, he liked telling scary stories. He liked to be entertaining, always.
He liked it?
He liked it, he was. No. He was very, very funny.
Which was the most amazing film you've made with Stanley Kubrick? I don't know, it was maybe Shining, because it was scary, or no? Space Odyssey?
It's very hard to say. In the making, a film goes through many mutations, and I, for one, was interested for different reasons each time. It's, you know, they're all different stories, very different topics, and I couldn't, you know, it's a difficult question to answer. Also depends on my own mood, how I will answer. It's too big a question, I think.
And Jan? Because you made so many brilliant films with it.
For me, the most amazing thing is Eyes Wide Shut. The way a man tackles such a difficult topic and is also willing to shoot for 5 days and simply disregard it and do it again because he wasn't satisfied with himself. That is for me always the ultimate test of a serious artist who demands so much from himself, never mind the others.
Eyes Wide Shut, a film that was banned because of those scenes, orgy scenes, and you had to change it. How it was? Because you know, Stanley Kubrick died, and as I read, you had to they ordered you to change the film.
He didn't change anything.
Yeah.
We had to, for the American market, superimpose more voyeurs, but we didn't change the cut. Nothing was changed. Journalists love to speculate because it's more interesting, you know, so they invent things, but nothing was changed, absolutely not, other than superimposing voyeurs for the American market only, because there was too much, as they called it, accumulated full frontal female nudity. I like the word accumulated. And so that's what we had to do, because we had to get a so-called R rating. That was necessary for the American market because A, our contract said it, and B, the MPAA has a self-imposed rule that you cannot advertise for an NC-17 film. I mean, yeah, I don't want to go into these technicalities, but that's why there was no option but to superimpose these voyeurs. But that's what we did. It cost a lot of money and wasted a lot of time. But anyway, not for Europe or the rest of the world.
Fortunately.
I beg your pardon?
Fortunately. Because
it's protection for America.
Yes. That's why you lived in England for so long time.
We came to England because there was a tax benefit and for films, which made a difference of 40%. That's what brought us there. And then we loved England and stayed.
And you stayed. You stayed for a long time, and Stanley Kubrick made his famous films in England. For example, Full Metal Jacket, film about war in Vietnam, was shot in London. It's a bit crazy for me.
It wasn't, because they were tearing down the local gasworks. There was a whole huge place in the middle of London that was going to be pulled down to rebuild. And Stanley took advantage, because he was a very clever producer as well, and said, let me tear it down. I can do that. I do it for nothing. I'll bomb the hell out of it.
It was much easier to make films in England than in the United States. It was easier to make films in England than in USA.
Stanley liked, he felt England is sort of in the middle of everything. They speak English, he noticed, and he thought he loved it. There was no other reason, really. He just liked living in England very much. So did I.
Anything to add? No?
Next question.
Next question.